everybody. This is Linda and Chuck, and Audrey's with us for this. And they're going to tell us what happened at their house on February 10th, around 3 o'clock.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start the story off. I was home during lunch from work, and I was getting ready to go back to work. Got in my truck, like I usually do, drove down the street, noticed a brown SUV following me, and I kept on driving, and as I got to Monterey Circle and was making the turn on to southbound Circle, I noticed two motorcycle cops pull in behind me in the brown SUV, pulling behind me. And they followed me to about, I would say, Circle and almost Fountain, and pulled me over. And the two motorcycle cops came up to my window and asked for my license and registration and said, "Do you know why we pulled you over?" I said, "No." I said, "You made an illegal lane change when you turned onto Circle." And I said, "Didn't realize that." And all of a sudden they came back to the vehicle and asked me to step out of the truck. So at that point I stepped out of the truck. They brought me to the back of the truck, and there was the guy who was driving the brown SUV, who identified himself as a detective supervisor. And he asked me, "Do you know why we have you detained here?" I said, "No, but I think I can guess." And he says, "Well, we're about ready to do a raid for overgrow and for drugs at your house." And I said, "Okay." I kind of expected that. My husband, probably called it in. And he proceeded to ask me, he asked for my purse, he asked for my cell phone at that point, asked me not to call anybody, told him where my purse was, told him where my cell phone was in the truck, and he went and got it and held on to it. And then he proceeded to ask me if I had a medical license, and I said I did. I told him where it was, and he pulled it out of my wallet and looked at it. Then he asked me if I knew what the law was for plant counts, and I said yes, I do. I said it's 30 in the city. I said I have a license for 24 plants from a doctor, and I said my roommate also has a recommendation from a doctor for 24 plants on his license. And I said, so we're actually under the city limit of 30. And he goes, "Okay, but why didn't you let the cops in on Christmas night?" And I said, "Well, the cops came by at 10:30 on Christmas night. I had already been asleep. I was wearing a robe, and at that time I showed them my red card, my license, and didn't feel the need to bring them into the house." And that's exactly what I told the supervisor. And then I let him know that my husband had called it in on that night as well, and that I had a protective order on him. And he asked me where he lived, and I gave him the address. And then he said that I was detained there on the side of the road, and I could hear on the radios them making entry into the house, and all the ruckus and calls from the other cops and everything through the radio of the police officer standing next to him. And they kept me there for about, I'd say, a half hour. And then they told me I couldn't go back to the house, and they told me that I couldn't call anybody.
So you weren't allowed to go back to your house?
I was not allowed to go back. I wasn't even allowed to go out near the house. He told me to stay away from that area.
Were you allowed to leave to go anywhere else?
I was allowed to leave to go anywhere else. I did have the supervisor call my work to let them know that the reason I was not back from work was because I had been detained by the police. It was the only way to get me excused from work so that I didn't end up getting in trouble there. So I made them do that, and then once they allowed me to leave the scene, they asked if anything was in the truck. I said no, you can search it. They didn't search it. They said they didn't need to run my license. They gave me all my documents back, and then they told me that I could leave, and I just couldn't go back to the area.
Huh.
So they took my home phone number down, they took my cell phone number down. They said they were going to give, the supervisor said he was going to give me a card with his name on it so I would have his information. I never got that. I never got shown the search warrant. And I was technically the landlord of the house at this time. My mom entrusts me with taking care of the house for her. So I wasn't presented with any documents. And the first thing I did was when I drove away, I stopped at the nearest shopping center, broke down, called my mom, called my divorce attorney to find out what I could do. And there was basically nothing we could do at this time. We had to wait out the raid and basically find out what they were going to do. So what I did was after I called them and talked to them, I circled back to the house and I sat down there at the gas station and parked. And then I did a blank text to Chuck to find out, just to kind of see if I get a response back, if they were done, could I come back? Because his was the only number I actually had. I didn't have my neighbor's number that I could contact him and ask him if, it was okay to come back to the house. So at that point, I waited for a word back from Chuck, and once he said I could come back to the house, which was at around 4:30, which was only an hour after I had left, the area where I got pulled over, went back to the house, came in, saw that the door was not even secured, and saw the damage to the door, saw the burn mark on the floor, saw my pictures all over the floor, saw my whole room had been gone through, saw that they just basically destroyed the place. And I was like asking Chuck, I'm like, did they show you a search warrant or anything? And he's like, no. And I ended up finding the search warrant by accident on my kitchen table. It was turned face down and it had handwriting on it that I didn't recognize. And when I looked at it, it said 3 items of indicia removed, 2 voter mail-in ballots, and 1 pay stub of mine. And so I looked at it, turned it over, and then saw the search warrant and saw the itemized list of everything they were looking for in the house, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what they were actually looking for. So I was blown away by the damage of the house. I was blown away when I saw the video of the police coming into the house and how many of them there were and with what force they came in. It astonished me. I mean, that they could do that.
Audrey, we've seen a bunch of these cases recently with raids, and does it seem odd to you that someone would be told that they cannot go to their house when there's a search happening, when other people have been searched with them in the home, and they're told they're free to leave, but they're also free to stay?
The police actually don't have any right to tell anyone that they have to leave the house that they reside in. I mean, this is actually the first I've heard of them telling someone they need to leave their house or that they can't go back to their house. I also find it odd that the police would originally say that they're pulling you over because of an illegal turn and then turn around and tell you that, do you know why you're being stopped?
Yeah, it seems like they use the pretense of one thing
Right.
in order to detain her for a little while. They lied to her.
Yes, they did lie to her. And also, they don't have any right to ask for your purse. If they weren't searching the truck, which they wouldn't be allowed to anyway without a search warrant. They have to have a search warrant to search your vehicle. And they, by right, should have a search warrant to search your purse.
And I know that when Chuck tells what happened because he was here, there are other things as far as the police's right to arrest people that are wrong in this story.
Correct. And also, the search warrant did not say anything about it being a no-knock raid search warrant. It just says search warrant on it, correct? Yes.
Yeah, in fact, we have the search warrant right over here. where it actually says just search warrant.
Yep, search warrant.
And nothing about a no knock, and the search warrant doesn't even identify anybody in the house, it just identifies the property.
Yes, and it also says on here, it's designed or intended for use in committing a criminal offense. Has been used as a means of committing a criminal offense, is illegal to possess material evidence in a subsequent criminal prosecution. There wasn't any criminal offenses being committed for them to even come in here in the first place. All they had to do was knock on the door and show that they had a search warrant instead of spending however many thousands of dollars that they spent to have a SWAT team and an armored car pull up, along with, the armed men that came, and then the flash grenade. I mean,
Yes.
what if there was a child in the house walking through as they threw that flash grenade in here?
There
They're already, the
very well
dog,
could have been because the dog was singed.
yes, the dog was singed, yes. I mean, oh.
Well, when they pulled me over, they specifically asked who was in the house. They asked who was in the house, where were they? So my son had already left the house. I said my roommate's downstairs, working in the basement with my neighbor. I said there's no weapons that I know of in the house, and I said you're not going to have any problem with anybody in the house. And I said I've got 5 dogs, but none of them are mean. I said 2 of them are really old.
So, some of the unnecessary use of force that they had was first they broke down the door, right? And from what you guys say, the door was unlocked.
It was. I had just left to go back to work, and I didn't lock the door.
And instead of even checking the door, the type of ram that they used is the type where you would be standing a few feet away from the door, not even try the door, and this ram can be deployed by pulling back on a lever, and it comes out and just smashes the door, regardless of whether it was unlocked or not.
Well, and
Seems a bit excessive.
that's what I was thinking. They could have knocked. I mean, we would have let them in.
And the very next thing that they did, which is borne out by the video footage, is they threw flashbang grenades into your house. And down here, there's a mark on the floor, on the hardwood floor. They threw a flashbang grenade. And to leave those marks after you've already cleaned here, and to still not be able to get the burn marks out of your floor, kind of a fire hazard,
Yeah.
Well, and the singeing on my
And-
dog's
and-
tails tells me that, that it was
Yeah.
hot and it could have caught anything on fire.
And so they knew the dogs were in here, and they threw something in, like, hey, fetch.
Yeah, it
And
sounds,
then the dogs go for it, and the dogs get burned by something that they could have mistaken as a toy.
Right.
yeah, well, not to mention that, I mean, in my opinion, that's animal cruelty, knowing that there were animals in the house.
And then the shrapnel from it.
Yes,
Yes, and they weren't able to clean up all of it. This is part of it.
Yes, that's what we found
That's
in the
the
cabin.
This is the handle with the serial number still on it, and there's part of it that they found underneath the couch, right?
Yeah,
because wasn't it the police that cleaned up the flash
Yeah,
grenade?
they took all the other parts.
And, interesting.
yeah,
But
they
they
made
left
sure
their
to
dirty
clean that
gloves.
up.
They left us their dirty gloves. That was muchly appreciated.
They left the rubber gloves on the backs of the couches and on our desk. And
Kitchen floor.
kitchen floor, right near the trash
Just
can.
like pick them up and just
Took
throw
the-
them.
Yeah.
Just took
No
the rubber
respect,
gloves off
no
and just threw 'em
regard
down
for-
on the floor, yeah. Mm-hmm.
None.
So, Chuck, you were actually in the house when the raid happened.
Yeah, I was downstairs in my room with my buddy Mike that lives across the street, and I heard all this noise, and I didn't know what was going on, you know, I didn't know what it was. I thought her son was still up here, and I heard all this ruckus. Well, I rounded the corner, coming out of the basement from my room, and all of a sudden, I get halfway towards where the flashbang went off, and I hear this boom. Sounds like a double-barrel shotgun going off. And then all these armed guys with these vests on and helmets and automatic weapons. There was tons of them. I mean, they were everywhere, coming running through the house going, get down, get down, get down. And I was like, okay, I'll get down. I'm not going to cause you any trouble. I'm disabled. I'll get down. Nobody's going to hurt you. Just, can you settle down, please? You know, they were making me nervous. And they pushed me to the floor. They ripped my shirt off, told me to crawl to the kitchen sink, towards the kitchen sink. And as they were dragging me by my fingertips, and I was telling them they were hurting me, and I explained to them that I had pins and screws in my lower back and up in my neck, and my knees were bad. And they just kept telling me to shut up. I kept asking them why they were here, and they just kept telling me to shut up. About the sixth time I asked why they were here, they said, we have a search warrant. And I said, for what? I'm a legal medical marijuana patient. I have all my documents. Can you let me up and show you? No, shut up. So then they handcuffed me and tell me to get off the floor. Well, I can barely get off the floor with my hands, let alone without them. And they finally helped me up, put me in a chair out here in handcuffs for about 25 minutes. You know, I had to wait on the detective that had her detained on the side of the road in order to come here and get our handcuffs off. And they had already been here. They had already realized we were complying with the law, city law, state law, everything. They knew we were complying. And they still did it anyways. They still kept me in the handcuffs, me and my neighbor, you know, a guy that I've just met, you know, a friend of mine. He's a good person, and now he's getting arrested in my house, you know. They're detaining him anyhow. Wouldn't allow me to, they wouldn't allow us to get up, they wouldn't allow us to talk. They kept us in with handcuffs on. I kept asking if we could get out because I mean, if you're not, in my opinion, if you're not in trouble, you shouldn't be in handcuffs, you know what I mean? And they were pretty aggressive. I mean, they were aggressive with my neighbor. I told him he was down in the basement. I told him he was unarmed. He would not hurt them. He would comply with them. All he had to do was just say what you wanted to do, and he'd do it. But he wasn't coming up because he didn't know what was happening. He originally heard the noise and thought that somebody had shot me because it was that loud. I mean, it was really loud. It would sound like a double-barrel shotgun going off in the house. I mean, everything was shaking. Pictures were falling off the wall. There was dust and sand and this yellow stuff in the air. They made us sit in all the smoke, and it was just terrible. I mean, it was a bad experience.
Audrey, from the cases that you've seen, when somebody has handcuffs on them, that means they're under arrest, correct?
Well, yes, generally if handcuffs are on, they've been arrested, yes.
This seems to go against all the knowledge that I've seen from these types of searches where people are told that they're free to stay or leave. He was actually in their custody at this time, you know,
Yeah.
and so far no charges have been filed.
Yeah, the detective told me when he left that there wasn't going to be any charges filed. We were complying with the law, and I asked him did he really think this was worth it. I said it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's children coming home from school. Actually, they were walking down the street. I have video of them walking behind the armored truck, you know, going home. And I said, was this worth it? I said, what if something would have happened and one of these kids would have gotten hurt? He says, you should have left us in on Christmas night when we showed up at 10:30 at night, and this wouldn't have happened. And I said, well, that just doesn't make any sense. I said, you could do that to anyone. And he goes, well, we're cracking down on all medical marijuana patients, doctors, and dispensaries.
Yeah, and you know, I think their whole theory of the time that they chose to come, I think that they did that because they knew kids were gonna be walking home from school and they were sending a message to them. I mean, why else would you put kids walking home from school in danger like that?
Well, they do seem to have a pattern here of very inopportune times to
Yes, they
come
do.
knock on the door.
Yeah.
And what you all were talking about, there could have been kids in the house. And
Yeah.
I know Linda said that she told the cops who was in here. But I'll let you all know that I have grandchildren that live here. And they're little. And they stop by very frequently and I get to visit with them. They come by and want to hang out with me. What would have happened if their mother would have dropped off one of my grandbabies and that flash grenade would have went off and they would have been here and I would have been standing in the kitchen instead of down in my room? What if that would have happened and they would have been standing right here? What
Yeah.
would have happened to my grandchild? I mean, they're little.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, again, no respect and a complete disregard,
yeah.
so.
It's scary, more or
They
less.
don't care, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's, this is this is a waste of city resources, number one. How much money did it cost to send 13 armed to the hilt SWAT team members over here? The armored truck with those that were in that, and I mean, they're facing a potential lawsuit. I mean, this is, everything that they did it wrong.
Absolutely.
Well, we also have cameras, and they didn't realize for about 25 minutes they were being videoed. And when the detective found out that he was being videoed, he told me he was taking my video. He was confiscating my video, even though I hadn't done anything wrong, and I was technically not under arrest. He was taking my video. And he then, at the end, he ended up not taking my video. But he forced me, before they forced me out of the house, by the way, they forced me to turn off the cameras, and then they forced me to leave my house while they searched it.
Yeah, that's,
They forced, I couldn't even stand out front with the officers. The detective said, well, where are you going to be? I said, I'm going to be standing right out front. And he says, no, this gentleman right here, and he pointed to a uniformed officer, is going to make sure that you're not standing out front because we have undercover officers coming into your house. I mean, they even brought, after they found out we were legal and we were complying with state, and city laws, they still brought even more people into our home. I mean, there was probably an additional 15 undercovers that came in. There were women, there were men, they were just in and out of our house. And for another 45 minutes to an hour, I couldn't come back in. I couldn't check on my dogs. I have a lab that I found a big whelp on his leg from the flash grenade, where he was standing right over here where I'm sitting, and the flash grenade's not that far away from me, and he got hit with a piece of shrapnel, and it actually, he got something inside of it and it got infected, and now I have to retake him back to the vet again.
wow.
You want to bring the dogs in so we can see
Okay.
the singed
I'll
tail?
bring them in one at a time.
See, police tell you to leave your house. You don't have to do that. What are they going to do? Arrest you for staying in your own house because they're here?
Actually, that's what I was afraid they were gonna do if I showed up.
And that's why they do, I just wonder if you would have said, if Chuck would have said, this is my house, I'm not leaving, I'm staying here. They can't arrest you for that.
Well, and I kind
But
of
people
wonder-
don't know that because people.
This is how vicious our dogs are right here.
Yes, this
This
is
is
the
Casper.
viciousness.
There's
And as you can see on the side of his leg,
Oh my God.
he has a big welt. I mean, it hurts him to touch it. I have to get him checked out again. My wife's a nurse, she's been checking on it, and now I need to take him to the vet, and he's so lovable. I mean, He wouldn't have harmed a fly. All they had to do was knock on the door and I could have let him in. We've always complied with every time they've knocked on the door. Any other time, you know, I mean, when they came Christmas night, we answered the door
Yep.
and talked to them. And why wouldn't I answer the door on February 10th? You know,
It
I
just,
mean,
Well, and
yeah. I mean, to have your animals hurt, I mean, the animals don't understand. They don't know what's going on. They don't want to be in this environment.
And was this dog singed at all?
He wasn't singed. He was far enough away from the actual, I guess, flame of it, you would have to say, because the other dog's burned. He was over here where I'm sitting, and he actually got a piece of shrapnel in his leg. And it got infected, and I didn't realize he had a piece of shrapnel for a week.
Yeah.
Because we checked all the dogs out, but it was under his skin, and we didn't realize
it wasn't until it
swelled up that we realized that he had actually had a problem.
Save those vet bills. You know?
Yeah. It still don't fix them though. I mean, I just wish they wouldn't have to go through that. If the laws were a little different, they wouldn't have to go through that.
Well, you know, this shouldn't have happened in the first place. I mean, when they came on Christmas night, you showed them your red cards.
Yeah, we complied with everything they asked them for their search.
You did the right thing. You did not have to allow them into your house without a search warrant. For them to come back, now what do you think the reason is that they came back February 10th?
the only thing that I can think of is that the same person who called in on Christmas night was the same person who called in shortly before the rain. Unfortunately, my husband and I are going through a divorce, and it's not a very pretty divorce. And I think this was going out of retaliation.
Come here,
Yeah.
come here. This is Daphne. This is the other dog. She's 8 years old. She's got health problems. And she's the one, if I can show you real
Here,
quick.
I got her head in.
She got burned on her tail, all the way down her tail, the backs of her legs, they're all burned up. Her feet were burned where she tried to run from it.
Yeah.
She was actually standing. She's not a very scared dog, you know. You're not gonna scare her beating on the door. She's interested in who's there, so she was right here. She never left the flash bomb. She was right there for the whole thing, and she got burned pretty good.
And you weren't able to tend to her at all because you were told to leave the house.
I was told to leave her alone. They had a vacuum cleaner handle off our vacuum, and we have a shop vac. They had a vacuum cleaner handle.
Come here.
They had a vacuum cleaner
That one
handle
right
pushing
there?
the dogs around. Yeah, this vacuum cleaner handle here. They had a shield. They were walking around with a police shield scaring them. And you see how vicious they are. They just didn't know what to do. I asked them, since I wasn't legally under arrest, could I get to my dogs and, you know, just calm them down, put them somewhere safe so they feel comfortable, like down in my room? No, shut up. Come here.
Mom,
Yeah.
Daphne, come here, Mama.
Linda, do you want to get into the reason why they were here, the person who called? Because it does kind of go to how this type of a system that they're just, you know, rating people on the word of a phone call, you know, can be abused
Yeah,
in horrible ways.
This is clearly abuse.
What happened was, on the 14th of December, my husband came down with the cops to try to force his way into the house. At that point, I had already filed for divorce.
Okay.
And so, basically the day after, I had to go get a protective order against him to keep him from forcing his way back into the house to live. When I got that protective order, it made him very angry. And on the 25th, at 10:30, when the cops came down to my house, they said they had an anonymous tip that we were overgrowing, and and that they wanted to check it out. And I told the cops, I said, I think my husband called this one in. Come to find out, when I got the police report for that night, my husband was the one who called it in.
So it
And
wasn't anonymous.
it was not an anonymous tip. My husband called it in. The police report that I have states that he had stated that I had over 30 plants and a loaded gun in the house. And that he was still the legal owner of the house, and that he could let the cops in if they needed him to.
Was he ever the legal owner of the
No,
house?
he was never. My mom has always been the legal owner of the house.
CSPD, mistake number 1. When someone tells you they own a house, check it. It's public record. All you have to do is go online.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that I had told the cops that came down, I said, my husband did it. I have a protective order on him. So when they told me it was anonymous, and I told them the information I had, I didn't think too much about it until the raid. And that's what made me go back and get the police reports, and that's when I found out that he did in fact call Christmas night. I had only had suspicions that he had done it.
And you have the record of the call.
I actually have the record of the call, and when he made it, what phone number he used to call from, which is his cell phone,
Okay.
and, you know, in stating exactly what he told them.
Huh.
I mean, he called in at 9:54 in the evening, dispatched somebody out to our house at 10:14, and they got here at 10:19. So, I mean, to me,
Christmas night.
on Christmas night, and I'm thinking this is the most important thing you guys have to deal with. And you guys couldn't even have looked up the fact that I had a protective order against my husband before you came to the house.
Yeah, exactly.
And with all the police calls that there've been since my husband and I split, there was no reason for them to come to the house. They knew that this was an unpretty divorce. And this is, you know, and that's what it was boiling down to.
Yeah.
And it made me even more upset when I saw his name on the report, and I tried to explain to the cops that he was the one that called it in, and they knew it. And when they didn't even check their facts then, and then a raid was able to happen, and when I asked the cop, I said, what investigation did you do? When he had me pulled over on the side of the road, and he says, we looked at your electric bill. I said, well, then you would have noticed that my electric bill has gone down by $100 per month since my husband left.
Yeah.
They always use that, oh, we looked at your electric bill excuse.
And I'm like, if you had actually done an investigation, you would have found out that all I do is I go to work, I come home, I clean, I take care of my dogs, I take care of my son, and that's pretty much it. That's my life. One
part about this that stands out to me is that this is part of a long history of abuse that they had a record of, and they decided to come to your front door with a battering ram. Now that broke your front door.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't lock it or anything.
And-
If the wind blows it open.
You being the victim of a long history of abuse, and also, you know, it's on record that he's been trying to move back in forcefully with the police assistance. That makes a broken front door a very big problem, you know, for someone who's been the victim of
It's
abuse.
a real big problem. You can't lock it at all.
And I
And-
feel like I've been kind of abused twice, you know? It's like once by him and now by the law.
Yeah, yeah, the law enforcement definitely, they have made so many mistakes. I mean, they did not do their homework. This is absolutely ludicrous that this can happen. And again, as you said, Michael, that this can happen with just somebody calling in and saying you have this, and all of a sudden you have the police busting down your door because someone said that you were overgrowing marijuana, and they're so intent on messing with medical marijuana patients. cracking down, isn't that what you said? That
Yeah,
he
yeah,
said
he
cracking
was gonna-
down on
he was
medical
gonna crack
marijuana?
down on
my
doctors, patients, and
Yeah.
dispensaries, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
It seems like they're in disagreement with what the Colorado voters voted on and
Voted
put
for.
into law. They're still,
yes.
it's like they're in disagreement, so they're going to try to prosecute the cases that they can as hard as they can, as if the marijuana were still illegal. They came with an army of SWAT.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot of people.
They did. I mean, you know, it's one thing if you're truly breaking the law, but when you're not breaking the law, why do they feel that they need to spend
Yeah.
city resources like that? You know, this man is disabled. He is a red card holder. Now, under the Colorado Constitution, you don't have to have a red card. All you need is a recommendation. People get their red cards. I did it too, thinking that, you know, me as an epilepsy patient, having to use cannabis, I would have a certain amount of protection with my red card. But what I'm finding is I've run across so many patients that have a red card that things like this are happening to. You know, you've got Bob, you've got him, I've got John Smith. The red card, they just seem to look at it and, oh, you know, so what? You have a red card. I mean,
But keep in mind, when they come in for an overgrown, suspected overgrown, they search your dresser drawers.
oh yeah.
They tear
search-
all your stuff out of any kind of a bag you have in there. This is the part that really threw me for a loop. They even tested the blow dryer in the bathroom and put it on all the speeds. For what reason that you would be able to grow a plant in a
Oh, well, you might have packed some marijuana
That's
in
the
there.
only thing I could think of, but they even did a blow dryer. I mean, they go through all your personal things. It's not come in and count your plants and leave. It's come in, count your plants, make you leave, then tear your house apart like you just did something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
Search all your
they
personal
make the
belongings.
raid an
As if
actual
it's
raid.
still completely illegal.
As if you were
And if you had
illegal.
31 plants instead of 30,
Exactly.
that would warrant the type of response
That's
that they
still the
gave
same.
that looks like back in the days where it was completely
Yes,
illegal.
it was exactly like if you were doing something wrong. If they actually would have caught you, say with cocaine, if you were a cocaine dealer and they actually busted your house, they tore it apart like they were looking for little things like that. I mean, hair dryer was, all your dresser drawers were torn apart. I mean, everything. Medicine sprawled all over the place out of the medicine cabinets. Nothing was put back, even though they found out that it
Personal
wasn't, and we
toiletries.
didn't do anything wrong. I mean, they still didn't even fix nothing or put anything away. I had
Oh,
all
no.
the dogs running around. We had medicine laying on the bed, stuff that
Yeah.
would have killed them instantly.
It's just mind-boggling for an overgrowth that they're gonna come in and act like that. When all it took, they had
That's-
seen our licenses, they knew we had red cards. For them to come in with that kind of force just made no sense.
No. And how many plants did you say you had?
22,
22.
and they were in different
Stages.
stages. We
But
only had
there's
six.
not 22 doing the same
Yeah.
thing. We're
Right,
in different
yeah.
stages.
6 in flower.
So we can have it, you know how it works.
Yeah.
So
Six
you
and-
have it, that, yes.
And then-
Six babies.
Yeah.
Six
or-
ba- six-
yeah,
yeah.
between the two of you, because you both.
Because
Yeah.
we make butter. We
Yeah.
also make butter, and that's one of the reasons why we have the higher count, because he recommended that I make butter because I have asthma. And he said that smoking marijuana is not good for my lungs. So he recommended some different treatments, and some salves and some creams and some different kinds of foods. So we've been making butter and stuff. So that's why our count is a little higher. They just don't understand that it takes a lot of plant to make the oils and the butters
And the extracts.
and the extracts. They don't understand that it takes a lot of plant to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, and you have doctor recommendations to back
Yes.
everything up. You thought that you were abiding by the law, by having your red card
That was my
and
whole
doing,
reason for this.
paying your $90 to the state.
Not including your doctor visit.
Yeah, and then the money for the doctor visits, which averages,
Was it
you know,
$110
$85 to $120.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
110 I paid.
And, you know, the state, the city, the county is reaping all the benefits and rewards from the patients and the businesses.
Yeah, the bus lines are back and.
Oh yeah, and my street light got turned back
Yeah, my street light
on.
got turned back on too. I was very happy about that.
Yes, but then they're complaining that they don't have enough money, yet they're wasting resources by having this kind of thing happen.
Right, but what's gonna happen, why can't they do it again? Why can't they just do this again? I mean, they can come back in my house tomorrow, go down and search my room again. I mean, what stops them from doing that?
It
you know?
seems like if they came on Christmas night
They'll
and then they
come
come
anytime.
again on February 10th, it seems like a random day,
Yeah,
and that they might plan 2 months in the future on a random day because they've picked you.
yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Well,
That's
I
what's
can,
got me
I can
nervous.
tell, well, yeah, but you know,
Like
Now our
yearly
neighbors think
checks on us.
we're staring
you
at us
know,
and everything. Our neighbors were
something
looking at
like
us.
that.
Now all of our neighbors look at us funny,
Mhm.
like we're criminals, because they don't know. Because
And we've had the cops
nobody
here so
nobody
much.
would say anything. They just had all these vehicles out there and made it look like we did something wrong, and never went to our neighbors and said, hey, they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
well, I have several posts here off of Facebook
Uh-huh.
from the husband of Linda's, and they're dated February 1st and February 2nd.
Okay.
The search warrant is dated for February 3rd.
Which was, he gave me a 2-day warning
Yeah,
to
Mhm.
return all of his things. Or
which
else,
she's complied with.
Yeah, yeah, the first one was February 1st at 12:21 a.m. Then the next post was at 12:33. The next post was at 10:34.
And this is while you have a protective order against him.
yeah.
And he's not supposed to be posting anything to you.
He's posting it on his wall.
No, this was all posted on his
Oh,
He's
wall.
got
on
it
his
posted
Yeah,
on
this was
his
Yeah.
wall,
posted on
yeah.
his Facebook wall, so he wasn't
And
directly
he leaves his wall
communicating.
public so you can go in and see it.
I was able to go in and see the ultimatum I got, that I had 2 days to comply with getting him the rest of the things that he wanted. On Facebook, he said that he was gonna call my job to get me
Yeah.
fired because of my
And-
job stance.
And the way that he does it in a way that it's not sent to you. But since you have mutual friends on Facebook, of course, they can find it and tell you, you know, he's making these threats, and they basically convey the threat for him. Just like the police are being used in this instance as an arm for him.
Well, and that's kind of the way I had been feeling about it, because it seemed like no matter what he says to them, they act on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whenever I tried to call them, they gave me the attitude like I was being hysterical, or I was being, I
You
was
have it on your
too worried, or I was just overreacting.
You have a statement stating that on the
Yeah,
actual police report that she was overreacting and they think that she was being his little
And the cops,
exaggerated on the issues.
when you're talking about this kind of stuff, the cops send a very mixed message about it. They want you to call, they tell you to call whenever you feel threatened, or whenever you feel like, or you're getting texts that sound kind of threatening, they tell you, call us, help us,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
And
that-
then when you do call, you get a cop with an attitude like, but you still have some of his stuff in here. He's already taken 3 truckloads of things out of this house that he's wanted, computers, TVs, all kinds of stuff. Never argued about a thing. But it's like when I'm getting a text saying, I'm gonna kick down your door, and my lawyer and the cops say I have every right to do so, is mind-boggling. And then I take that to the cops, I'm saying, that's pretty much a threat. Well, no, he still technically is a resident here. because I had gotten a first protective order on him, and that was the reason he originally left the house. And when I lost when I lost the first protective order, the court hearing for that, he kind of took it as he won and came over and started making demands, wanted his guns back. Showed
That
up
was
at
only like
my,
an hour later, right? That was
Yeah,
about an hour
that was
later
about within an hour
Well,
later.
of
and-
the court date.
One of these posts on February 2nd says, "Time's up, call's been made." Then the next post, which was about an hour later, says, enjoy the ambulance ride, bitch." The next post on February 6th,
That seems like it's directed towards her.
well, it is directed.
But he just
Exactly
throws it
what
on
it
his
was.
own page.
Yes, he puts
Yeah.
it on
So
his
that
own
it's not-
wall.
Skirts the law.
Yeah.
And then on February 6th, it says, "Watch the mail for your red card suspensions. They're coming very soon now."
He told us that both our red cards
Yeah.
are suspended because he keeps telling us that we're not, we went to a shady doctor and we paid for our license, she paid for hers, I paid for mine. We paid extra basically so he would pass us. And I'm like, I
Oh,
took medical records with me when I went. So I
Yeah.
mean, I got a legitimate doctor.
as everybody does
Right.
have to.
Right,
Yeah.
we went to a legitimate doctor.
Yep.
And I've seen the scars from the reasons that you need a red card.
Yeah.
It seems very legitimate, and I am very saddened to hear about what the police did to you. You know,
I'll tell you, I
but
trade
in throwing
anyone's
you
spots.
on the ground.
I trade anyone's spots. I would love to be back to work and not have to have a red card.
Yeah.
And be able to live my life like I used to. And now I'm disabled, you know, and I have to use it, you know, for me to get through the night. I mean, people don't see me here at night when I do have an episode, just like as of you. I mean, you're having one tonight. I mean, you're in a lot of pain, but you're still going.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's hard to do. It really is. And then to have somebody worried about having your door kicked in every night now, that's what we do. We sit, I mean, we tense up when that doorbell gets rung or we see somebody walking up the step. We literally tense up. I mean,
And
to
you're
where
all
our dogs' hairs
Yeah.
stand up, and they're never done that. They know we're just worried. I mean, I'm worried for my safety and their safety. They're worried for their safety.
Yeah.
We woke up one morning and it was a really windy night. Doors all the way open, hung wide open, heat's running nonstop. We can't keep it closed. They broke everything out of it.
And so, and not having the money right away to fix it, gotta go through my mom's homeowner's insurance, and she's gotta file a
Daffy.
claim so we can get this fixed. And you know, it'd be a wonderful thing if they came in, did a search, found nothing, broke your stuff up, at least offered to fix the door. At
Well-
least secure the door.
They're not gonna do that, but what they should have done was knocked on the door, went and looked at the plans, and then left. That's what should have happened.
That's all it
what
should
we
have been.
thought. That's what we thought when the officer on Christmas night came and threatened us with the narcotics task force, since we would not allow him into our house to search. That's what I thought would happen. They would knock on the door and say, "Hey, we've had too many complaints. We have a search warrant," and there would have been no problems. I have nothing at all to hide, and neither does she.
No.
We have nothing in this house that's illegal.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, that's what I don't understand. I thought being out here, I didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, under the jurisdiction of our district attorney, Dan May, the whole department needs an education on how to deal with patients that are within the law.
Yes, they do.
Mhm.
And it seems that patients that are within the law are easy targets for the police department and the district attorney. Because even though they're spending money that they don't need to spend, they also, in the event that you have to go to court and get taken to trial, they're also hoping that they're going to generate funds from that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
My biggest fear is what if another patient that said they rented another house and somebody's worse off than I am, and say they can't hear. And they wouldn't have used that flash bomb, and they just busted in his door or her door and knock them down and cripple them. And to find out that they're a legal medical marijuana patient and they're not doing anything against the law. What
Right.
happens then? Are they just gonna say sorry like they did about the door and about the dogs being burned? I mean, we didn't even get a sorry, but
Yeah.
we just were told that we should have complied to Big Brother when he told us on Christmas night that we should have allowed him in.
And it seems like when they knocked on Christmas night, they had really no probable cause to get a warrant.
No,
No.
that's what
But when they
said.
came back, their probable cause was fed by you rejecting them when they didn't have a warrant.
Yes.
So part of the reasoning was that you didn't want to be searched.
The detective
You
told me-
exercised your Fourth Amendment rights,
Yes.
That's
and
right.
and
Because
so
of
that
it.
because you exercise your rights, that's a strike against you. So then they can get a warrant.
Well, there's a lot of arrogance to it too. I mean, the detective told me, he's like, I believe one of you all told them that get a search warrant. Well, we're here with it. And that's one of the comments was made by the detective to me. Because I was asking the questions that any person that is renting a place has the right to ask, like, what are you doing here? And why am I still in handcuffs? You know, you have to ask those questions. I mean, I don't think it's right.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and like I said, they had enough history on this address. And the cop, like I said, the cops were here for my husband's 15-minute keep the peace. They were inside the house.
Yeah.
They watched him load up his hydro grow equipment and take it with him. I mean, and then to have and then only like 6 days prior a month prior, have the cops over again. I've had the cops over so many times that there should have never been a suspicion of an overgrowth, because the house did not smell.
Nothing. We had only 4 when they showed up Christmas night, and they were just in veg. They were not even flowering or anything, so there
Yeah.
was zero smell in this house when they came. I mean, if you're overgrowing, everybody knows marijuana puts off a smell. That's why they're after it so much. It stinks. They can catch it easier.
Right.
But, if you're overgrowing, you're gonna smell in here, out there, everything. And they were right at the front door. That door stood wide open. We were standing right there, and they never smelled anything. They never said they smelled anything. But yet, they felt we were overgrowing.
Yeah.
Just based off of one calling.
Yeah, one individual.
And that's the scary part of it. It's not just my situation, but it could happen to anybody.
Anyone.
I mean, you get siblings pissed off at each other, or neighbors that are mad at each other, and they could do the same thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. There should be more checks and balances before a search warrant is just handed out.
All I have to do is be mad at you
Yeah.
and have them come to your house to say, Audrey's overgrowing. And they come to your house and you say, no, you're not coming into my house. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, they're busting your door down to see if you were not overgrowing. That's scary.
Well, here's something I'd like to talk about. Back in, I can't remember if it was 2008 or 2009, behind my ex-boyfriend's home was a heroin-addicted, heroin-dealing prostitute. The whole entire neighborhood was filming the traffic that was going back and forth, in and out of the house. There were many complaints, calls. The police did absolutely
That's right.
nothing. Nothing. This is heroin we're talking about. They chose to ignore it. The neighbors had pictures, they had videos. They didn't want to mess with it. The police had gone over there a couple of times, Nothing ever happened. It took 2 different evictions to actually get the woman out of the residence.
And yet we get our door knocked down because
Yeah.
somebody called and said that's mad at us, says, hey, you,
Yeah, but you have a whole entire neighborhood calling to complain about the traffic that's going in and out of the house, and nothing's done about
right.
it,
Yeah.
you know? Tell me if that makes sense.
And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the same officers that were just on the stand in Bob Krause's motion hearings, that they just had their minds refreshed as to what's legal as far as holding someone during one of these searches.
Well,
They were probably members of that same
They
team
are some.
in this city were part of this bust.
oddly enough, one of the names of the officers that was here was one of the 2 officers that had involvement in Bob's.
That was on the stand, one
Yes.
of those
And that's the one
detectives.
that recommended the bust.
Yep.
And so they know that it's illegal for them to put handcuffs on him and hold him and detain him like that. And they were just reminded of that in a court case, and yet they still did it.
Yes.
To someone who's disabled, who has pins and steel in his body,
Yes.
and what they did was
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah. Very brutal.
I know.
I mean,
know
they are getting worse as time's going on. I mean, I don't understand how they're getting away with this, or any of the things that they're doing.
Audrey, I no longer stretch with my hands over my head, and I no longer can get my hands back where they had them. You know, but they insisted to keep me back there like that for 25, 30 minutes. I mean, I don't know the exact time, but it felt like eternity.
Oh,
that I was
sure.
that I was in these handcuffs. And I asked them many times, you know, if I'm not in trouble, why can't I have them off? And they just kept telling us we had to wait for the detective to come. And which the detective was sitting on the side of the road that had her detained for no reason. And I had to wait for him to come all the way back up the road in order to have me and my neighbor, which I'm thankful doesn't hate me because of him having to go down with what happened here. He was just here to visit me. We were down in my room sitting, you know, hanging out. We're both disabled. We're just trying to keep each other from going crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And that's all we were doing. We were just hanging out and heard that noise, and it was unbelievable. From then on out, it was unbelievable. It looked like a movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, just watching the videotapes without audio is chilling enough in itself.
It's like a bad dream. It's really
And
bad.
extremely excessive. I mean,
To see the smoke coming, the amount of smoke coming out of the front door just seconds after they came in
Yeah.
was, I don't know, that was unreal.
You couldn't even
Yeah.
see in here.
I was
didn't
like,
know who
was
coming
the
through
house on fire?
yeah, yeah.
I could barely even see that it was police officers until they got like really close to me. And I don't hear very well anyways, and after that flash grenade went off, you know, but it just ended up being a bad scene.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I'm just more upset about my animals
Oh,
getting
yeah.
hurt because, I mean, we can replace things, but
Yeah.
what are we supposed to tell these dogs? They don't know what sorry means, or it wasn't their fault.
And they're still freaked out
They're
because
very freaked out.
I mean, anytime they hear the door open, they all run to either whoever's around. And
They run
basically,
to
if
a
it's
person.
Alex, if it's my son Alex, they'll all run to his room. If my door's open, they'll all run in my room. If he's here, they all run to him.
They all run
And
downstairs.
it's like they just don't. They're kind of off.
And they used
from
to
the whole
stand there
thing.
and bark at the door and get up on the couch and
Oh,
look
yeah.
out the window and tails a wagging, and now especially Casper, and
Very,
I have
very
another
little.
little dog that's his buddy about the same age. She didn't get hurt. She was in her kennel, thank God. And she's really freaked out too. My older dog's really freaked out. Every time he hears the doorbell, he just cringes and they shake.
Yeah,
It's just a shame.
animals remember those things, you
They,
know,
they were throwing up and
it was,
everything
it
after
was
that.
traumatic for them.
Yeah, they were literally throwing up after
And I mean, you know,
the
the dogs,
situation.
you know, none of the dogs were biting at the heels
They were trying to get
or,
away from the cops.
or anything, and here you have the police taunting them.
They were trying to get away
I mean,
from the cops.
that's animal abuse.
You're
Yeah,
talking
it
about a dog
was.
that's almost 9 years old.
Yeah,
And my other dog, he's 6.
And we gotta feed her pills, you know, for her bladder. You know, so she's not in good shape. She's overweight, you know. That's not anybody's fault, but ours, but you know, I mean, but she's still not in good shape. She's old.
yeah.
And to have that happen to her, I mean, she took the most of it, because as you see, she was getting ready to lay down right where that flash grenade was until I called her over here. I mean, that's where she lays.
She used to lay right by the door.
She would
She
have,
hasn't
she
laid
probably,
by that door.
no, she does not lay in front of that door at all anymore, and that was her spot. She will not lay there. For the next 5 days, you could not sit anywhere in the house. It didn't matter where you were. All the dogs were draped around you. I have pictures of all the dogs and how scared they looked sitting around us, and I just feel for them. You know,
Yeah.
you know, you see all these commercials about animals being abused and everything, and then somebody abuses my animals and I'm not getting any help for it.
Right,
You know.
yeah.
And what killed me was I told him that I specifically had
That's
old
right.
dogs. And I'm like, my dogs are old. My roommates are young, you know, but mine are old. They, you know, you're gonna freak them out. You know, if you come in there, all you're gonna do is freak them out. They're gonna piddle themselves.
Yes. And her husband was trying to get my dog shot. I have a dog that would have, if he would have been in trouble, would have gotten shot because he's a protector. Get down,
Oh,
Casper.
Caspar.
Casper, get down. And he literally I'm sorry. He literally sent my wife a text and asked them if they shot my oldest dog.
Oh. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always thought it was the duty of the police, who, by the way, are public servants, to serve and protect the community. And it seems like what's going on here is to harass
And hurt.
and hurt
Yes.
the
And
community.
in this case, it's particularly bad. You know, to leave someone who has this history of abuse defenseless with a broken front door, you know, with an ex that's proven that he wants to come to the house and try to come back. You
He's a
know.
Who
big
has,
boy, I mean.
and this lady right here has an order of protection.
Yeah.
And why does law enforcement check out people when they're calling with their tips, do the actual investigating, since you're a detective, before you do what obviously was unnecessary?
Audrey, my day consists of getting up, dealing with the dogs after my medicine kicks in and everything, and I can actually move around. Dealing with the dogs, you know, cleaning up the house, because you got 5 dogs, they tend to get a lot of hair everywhere. You know, and I pretty much, for the most part, stay in the house unless I have to go get some groceries or something. And I thought that was legal, you know what I mean? If they investigated me, is my point, they would have found out I'm pretty boring. Because, I mean, I don't do anything. I don't know anybody out here. I don't go anywhere because I don't know anywhere. And I stay in this house 90% of the time unless to go get some groceries. So if they did an investigation, how come they don't know that I'm in the house 90% of the time?
Right, yeah, they
And I
didn't
leave
do
to
any
go get groceries.
investigating.
And also I walk with a cane. So they would have known I was disabled and I was really bad off because I use a cane if they investigated me.
Yeah, they didn't do any investigating, obviously. I mean, they
Yeah,
can't, they
that's my
did, this all
thoughts.
happened because of a disgruntled
Husband.
ex-husband,
Yeah.
or almost ex-husband. Yeah. I mean, there's so much evidence that they should have looked at before they made this decision. And
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's really, you know, my faith in, especially in this last year, in the Colorado Springs Police Department and the district attorney's office, our judicial system, it's absolutely ludicrous what goes on here. I mean, this, I'm sorry, this is corruption.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, and then what kills me is when I was in my first protective order hearing, and I didn't have an attorney, and I should have. He had his attorney, and the judge, when he dismissed it like this. He said, I believe that he has done everything that you have stated in your protective orders that he has done. But I don't believe that he will do it again.
And he's been doing it for 22 years. Not
Is what he told me.
And how long ago was that? What was the first?
That was December 6th, when I went to hearing and I lost. And that very afternoon, 2 hours later, he's at my door beating on it. My son had called me on the cell phone. You could hear the pounding in the background.
Good.
Wow.
And my neighbor even
Yes,
came
yes,
by and
really.
said,
My neighbor
I
called
saw
me.
him here.
He says, hey man, you need to get home. Matt's beating the door down.
And I've got 81 texts on my old cell phone from December 6th to December 14th when he showed up with the cops to force his way in. You know, saying I have so much time to reply to him, or he's going to go down and get a restraining order on Chuck, kicking him out of the house, and that he was going to move in, and that basically I had no choice, that we were going to work it out, and
He was
basically
putting cameras and audio in every room. So he could prove he wasn't doing what they say that he was
And
doing.
I have held on to those texts now for my divorce and for this protective hearing,
Yes. Yeah, and
to prove
you know, and
that he has not given up.
I don't even know the guy, and just looking at his Facebook posts, woohoo.
That's
Yeah.
been the opinion of most of the cops who have come down on his calls.
But they won't do anything about it. They
They
all
won't.
say, yes, we see he's got a problem, but they
And-
continue to.
To
I
allow
mean,
it.
tell them about your phone call that you got right after you got out of your first court date. I mean, you don't have to go word for word, but just the actions behind it. I mean, he made him sound like it needed to be done.
He did. He was going, I know you're upset, because he lied. He got up on the stand and he lied
He's a
about,
professional
I mean-
liar. He's done it all of our life.
he brought in so much personal stuff to make me look bad. He even brought in my menstrual cycle. And said that, you
And
know,
did to
that
the
was a
whole
reason.
courtroom.
So, I mean, it was just, he got on the phone, he goes, I know you're upset about this, but it had to be done. Now, you need to talk to me.
We need to work
And
this out.
Maybe right for wrong, I ignored him. I was so mad, I didn't want to instigate, and every conversation we had tried to have had ended up poorly. So, I just didn't answer him. I'm like, I am not going there. And it just kept ratcheting up and ratcheting up and
And
ratcheting
his
up.
response
Yeah,
is to use other people to get to you when you won't give him any attention.
no, and I haven't, and it's killed him.
His response to that there, what she was just talking about, he went and lied to the courts and got a restraining order against me. And his
Because I didn't
plans were,
answer him in
because
10 minutes.
he was gonna be up, she had 10 minutes to answer him, or he was getting a restraining order put on me for assault, and I've never touched him or talked to him since they've been going through their incident. He was a friend of mine, you know, I was trying to stay out of it. And it just got bad from there.
Well, he's definitely a sociopath.
Yeah, it was just
Well-
bad. It's a bad deal all the way around.
And
Yeah.
and the amount of times he's been able to have the police harass you for him is just horrible. You have the list of police officers that were in your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a really long list
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
police
there was a
officers,
lot of
because
people here.
just the ones that were on video, that wasn't it.
No, it
There's
wasn't.
pages of names of police officers that were in here for the next 2 hours or so.
Yeah, going through all of our personal things,
Pages
just tearing
and
them up.
pages of names. And it seems like with that many police officers, they must have had one, assigned for just that desk
Yeah.
to search it.
There's
You know,
5
every-
pages of names on
And
it.
one for the
5
fish
pages
tank.
of names of police
Yeah,
officers.
it's full, 5 full pages of names for with police officers.
I don't even think this house has that much occupancy.
Yeah.
I don't think it has that much furniture.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, did they search the fish tank? I mean, I saw a couple plants floating.
They,
You
they
never
were
know.
lined. They literally made a U around this whole living room, and I was sitting right over here, and they had my friend sitting in that chair right at the front of the desk, and they were literally lined all the way around in a big U, holding on to their machine guns, like we were gonna do something. We were already detained against our will. We were already stuck and locked up
In your own
in our
house.
own home. Yeah.
Audrey, what is the penalty for having one plant over the limit? Is this a horrible felony that would warrant machine guns
No.
coming out?
No, it doesn't warrant the excessiveness that happened
Yeah.
here. No. And they already knew that Chuck was disabled.
Yes.
They already knew that, there were
5 dollars.
5 dogs, but mellow dogs, older dogs. They knew they had red cards. They
Yeah.
knew that there was harassment going on because they have it on record. I don't know why they didn't check. I don't understand this at all.
Yeah.
It's,
And to come out here and find them well under the limit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing that happened to Bob. Bob was well under his limit of his recommendation, although Bob, they didn't have that excessive force like they did
Yeah.
here.
They used other ways of keeping
They're trying to
him
put Bob in jail.
arrested while not under arrest.
Right, yes, yes.
It's for your safety. Yours and the police officer's safety. They put you in handcuffs. Why do I, at 41 years old, need somebody to protect me and put my hands behind my back so I
Yeah,
don't hurt
well,
myself?
that's just
You
a
know, I mean, I'm a
bullshit
grown man.
excuse. They need it for your protection, my ass.
Yeah, that's what they say, It's for my protection. Like what am I going to do? Smack myself in the head?
Yeah. Well, I've been able to get around quite fine without handcuffs.
Yeah, I've done
Thank
pretty
you.
good.
It seems to me that the SWAT team that they brought in with their machine guns, they didn't need that much protection against him. Just being in handcuffs is excessive when they have machine guns and
Right,
and
yeah.
bats and shields.
Right, like you're gonna do something.
They were in full gear.
Oh, yeah.
Like they didn't know what to expect when they walked in, so it made me think, what in the world were they told, or what concept did they have coming in here of what they were gonna find? And it would seem to me, if they felt strongly enough to use that kind of force to come into a house, then wouldn't it have behooved them to do some type of an investigation?
Yeah.
I mean, just to find out who they were dealing with? I mean, to even see if the tip was true. I mean, I always thought when you talked about search and seizure, that they actually had to provide evidence to get the search and seizure from a judge.
I really
mean,
thought
from my
Bob was in
understanding of
danger.
government, growing up, that's what I thought was the process.
This one police officer, not only is he involved in Bob's case, but he's also involved in Elisa Kappelman's case,
Another,
a business owner.
yes, another case where there's a lot that has gone wrong.
Yes, all of these cases, there's a lot that has gone wrong, and this guy is in all of them, at least those 3.
He's going to end up getting somebody shot, Audrey. He's going to end up getting somebody killed, or somebody's animal killed, or somebody's child killed. I mean, he's going to end up getting somebody hurt.
And
or killed.
if any of these cases were legitimate, he, by all of the horrible things that he's doing in other cases that probably will come up, you know, as far as his, you know, he's his own character as a witness. He's ruining it.
Mhm.
Because there probably is a case or two that were legitimate that he's prosecuting.
Should I go ahead and say his name?
A word.
Maybe not.
Well, we all know who he is.
But for every horrible abuse like this case right here, which isn't even a case.
Yeah, it's not a case.
For every horrible thing like this that happens, they're ruining their credibility for prosecuting real cases.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, what real cases are they prosecuting? It seems like
It wouldn't
there's-
even have to be something with medical marijuana.
Yeah.
If they actually did want to prosecute someone for selling heroin, this would be brought against them and say, look, this officer has a history of misconduct.
Mhm.
And we can prove it. You know, we even have video footage of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
It's just amazing.
I can close with this. This is the setup that you had that recorded them as they came in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there was the initial wave right there. And Chuck, you can see how they open the door, don't knock. The guy's propping open the door,
He
and
has the
they're-
flash grenade.
yeah, he has the flash grenade ready, you know, and they're using a battering ram right now, and they don't even have to be near the door
Yeah.
to use it. They're feet away,
The door was unlocked.
and the door was unlocked.
And look at all the smoke pouring out.
And the smoke, it just keeps on pouring out of your house because basically your floor's on fire
That's what it was, yeah.
because they
And
threw
the
a
dog.
flash, and your dogs.
My dogs, yeah.
And from talking with you earlier, you said that the camera number 4, which isn't connected right now, you had a plan for it,
Yeah.
that it's probably going to be inside your house.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you have these cameras to protect your expensive cars
Right.
outside. You have a
That's
Monte
the
Carlo
reason they're out there.
and a Nova, you know, and they're very expensive cars.
They
And-
have a lot of money in them.
And
yes.
now you're thinking about setting up camera 4
Yeah.
in your own living room.
Thinking about putting a lot of cameras in here because I'm afraid that this is going to happen again. You know, and the police, every time they come to the house, they get so worked up for some reason about these cameras that we have outside. And I try to explain to everybody, just like you have, they're for my cars.
Yeah. Well, you know
I
why
have a
they
lot of
got
money.
worked up about it? Because they're actually on film.
They even stayed on. They even stayed on the statement when they came on the 25th. They have a camera watching their front door. We have cameras because I'm watching my cars.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they said there was a lot of break-ins around here and everything, and I've always had cameras on my cars. I got a lot of money in them. They're race cars. They're not just.
Yeah.
I've,
Well, my neighbor has, you know, and I'm so thankful that he does. My next door neighbor has cameras because we have a shared driveway. And so he has cameras because we have had in the day when the police helicopter used to fly around all of the time.
Yeah.
We had instances in the neighborhood where we also have a gate at the end of my portion of the driveway where people have been running from the police to come through. And so he's got cameras, he has them out to the street on our cars, just in case, you know. And so I'm glad he's got those cameras.
I myself have installed a camera, and I'm getting ready to install a camera outside to watch my truck, because I left my truck unlocked one night, my mistake, and we live right next to a high school. And we had heard that every year around a certain time, around this time of year, where it starts to warm up, there's a gang of kids that will go door to door, just checking doors to see if they're unlocked on their cars because they're looking for the change inside the cars. And when I had my truck broken into, I had my cup holder full of change, and they ripped it out of my truck, and so I see the reason now to have a camera because it's good for the neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
My cars have been broken into before, not here, but they have been broken into before. That's why I do have the cameras, and those cameras have also caught people in the neighborhood. They had people, just like you said, around here breaking into cars and everything, and these cameras caught 2 young juveniles over across the street at a neighbor's house trying to steal their stereo, and they were caught on camera and was able to get them out of their car and have them locked up for attempted theft, not theft, and that was what the cameras are for. They're not to watch the police officers. I could care less what the police officers do.
And actually, working as a technical support agent, I talk to a lot of customers that are installing their own cameras and are, I'm helping them set up their routers
Right.
to open up the access for those cameras so they can do remote access. It's huge in California. I mean, I'd say about 1 million people out there have gone for the personal home camera system, and where they can actually check in on it from their iPhones or Androids.
Well, Audrey,
it's huge.
they were downstairs in my room, and they damaged a couple of my plants, and how am I to prove it without having, a camera down there? That's why I recommend it to anyone that is has their own, garden, they're legal.
And
Make sure you have a camera because may happen to you.
And speaking
and it's
of
not for people that are gonna steal from you. It's not for a criminal element.
It's not for
No.
that.
The criminals that you're trying to catch are, in this case,
The police.
the police.
Yeah, and I'd like to add about those plans. They neglected to add that they took those clippings on the search warrant.
Right, yeah, they never wrote that down.
They never wrote it down. The only thing that's written down is the mail-in ballots and the pay stub.
Well, they were actually voter registration
Or
cards.
voter registration
They're not
cards.
mail-in
They
ballots.
mistook that, but it's still very bad.
Yeah,
As far as what you could take from a house, those were voter registration cards that were actually for precinct changes for
Yeah.
where people have to now go to vote, and so you guys could have been disenfranchised by this by not knowing where to go.
I am.
yes.
Because I am new out here and I have no clue where to go because it was on my card. They took my card. I don't know where to go now.
Did you ever find out about getting those items returned?
No one will talk to us about it.
Yeah.
No one will talk to you about it. Wow.
They have a
Or
case
they-
number. You call the case. Do you want to tell them?
Well,
Did you talk to them?
you call them up, you ask them about the case. Then you ask them, well, I need this stuff back. Well, you need to call this person. You give you a number. And then you call that person and you go, well, I'd like to get this stuff back. Well, you need to call this person. Okay. So you call that person and they tell you to call a different place. Finally, I just said, forget it. I'll just ask my attorney to do something and to get it back. So I'm just going to go through the attorney because it's a lot easier than the ring around the rosy that they're playing with me with going, you need to call this person, you need to call this person.
Yeah,
you need to
nobody
call this
knows what
person."
they're doing.
Well, every
Obviously.
case, every time they come into a house, of course, every case has a number, whether you're guilty or you're not guilty.
Right.
And we called in and because we got a case number for the raid and asked them, what's going on? Why is there a case number? Well, let me check it out. And they type it in, well, it's empty.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there, but we still can't get our stuff back. There's nothing in it.
Well, they don't have it, is what they said. They don't have it. They had no
Okay, well, who
information about
does?
it. I know, it's like if there's a case number, then technically you guys should have it.
The detective supervisor should have it. He's the one that took it.
DA should have it,
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I mean, I called the DA's office, and I was thinking maybe the DA might know about it, but nope. It came up goose eggs,
Yeah.
nothing.
We don't get nothing out of it. I mean, nobody's telling us anything.
The only thing I was able to do was get the call number to get the report of the actual raid.
That was actually easy.
But I am having, what I'm running into walls on is getting a hold of the evidence that they submitted to the judge to get the search warrant.
Yes.
That's what I
That would
want.
be very interesting
I think
to
I'm-
find out about.
Well, I think I think both of us should be entitled to that.
You are entitled to it under the Colorado Open Records
Well,
Act.
in
That's
law,
what I-
don't you
that's
have
what I
a
was
right to,
thinking.
didn't the America, you got a right to confront your accuser?
Yes, you do.
What
And-
happened to that law?
But I actually was looking into the Colorado Open Records Act, and as long as it's within a reasonable cost, you have the right to anything
That's what I thought.
pertaining to this,
Okay,
to anything that involves police, court, accusations, that, you were able to get the police report, it's along those same sort of lines,
That's what I
That's
thought.
good.
and they have to provide you with that at a reasonable cost if there is one.
yeah, there's a cost.
Yeah,
There's always a
$5 per
cost.
record.
yeah,
I paid $30 to get the records I got.
And we're still going.
I paid more for the next set that I'm going to get.
wow.
And even when Audrey, I drove her down the next day 'cause she was upset. I drove her down to the police station to get these reports. And the officer behind the counter, when he typed in his address, he went, "Whoa, we've been there a lot." Now, why shouldn't the narcotics task force seen that? Why shouldn't
Yeah,
they
why
have
didn't
seen
they
that
look
same
at
record?
that? Yeah.
Going, well, that should have been a red flag, wouldn't you have thought?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Or check their informant against any protective orders that he may have on him.
And why would he be
Exactly.
calling in there? And how did he have this information? How did he get the information? That particular person hasn't been in this house in almost 6 months. How did he have that information?
And how is he considered a reliable informant?
Exactly.
That was my whole point. You
You
know,
got a point there. Yeah, you're right.
how are you considered reliable informant
When you got a restraining order.
and there's documented proof that you have not been back in the residence since September 26th.
Yeah.
That's 3 months prior to him calling in that Christmas night. And that's the same thing I questioned to the cops.
Well,
I'm like,
yeah.
your informant has not been in our house.
Right.
Has not been in mine and my son's house. So there's no reason, why he would be able to get a tip that would be credible.
Exactly.
So basically my question would be okay, sir, when was the last time you saw the 30 plants? Would been my question if I had taken the call. And how could he have honestly answered
And why
that?
are you making this
Yeah,
call?
because, it's hearsay. I mean, I had a harassment situation, and because it was just my word against his word, they wouldn't file a restraining order or a protective order. Because it was just my word. I didn't have anything on tape. This is what I was told anyway. I didn't have anything on tape, and I didn't have anything on text or phone call, because this was an altercation that happened in person. There were no other witnesses around, and I felt that, I was in danger.
Right.
And so naturally, I would call the police. Not a damn thing happened.
But her soon-to-be ex got one on me and I haven't even been around him. And he was able to go right down, get a restraining order.
He must have some kind of clout.
He's a
And that's-
professional liar is what he is. He's good at
Well,
that.
yeah.
He's very good at
But
it.
I mean, I don't understand why they would take this guy's word. Why wouldn't they look him up?
And that's what we didn't understand.
We didn't
I mean, he's really good at manipulating people, but still, they're supposed to be trained professionals in this business, and they're supposed to be able to see right through that.
Right,
That's what
yeah,
we
they're
pay them
supposed
for.
to, yeah.
Well, and what's even more crazy is the first protective order I got on him, which was in the end of September. I wasn't the only one. My son also got one against him. because he showed up at my son's work.
Gotta get water.
So, I mean, it's.
And this is his own son.
This is his own
That
son.
is- that has had to
wants
get-
nothing to do with
Yes.
him anymore after what he did to his mom.
So, I mean, that didn't carry any weight. None of it did.
He even went after his own son when reason she got her protective order and he got it. He went after his own son and was trying to beat him up at his job in front of everyone.
Trying to take
take
the
his
keys.
vehicle.
Because I had given him my truck and told him to get out when things were starting to get bad.
And then he tore all the plug wires off of the cap off of, took all the vacuum hoses off her carburetor, everything.
Took
Left
the
it sitting out
distributor.
there at the parking lot at his job.
And then asked me that night, where's Alex and where's the truck?
And he knew he done disabled it.
And I was like, the truck's still sitting at Walmart. And the very next day, I went down and, well, no, it wasn't the next day, it was the day after, because when you go to the police station, you ask them about getting a protective order on the weekend, they tell you, you have to go to court. But what they don't tell you is that you have to be there and fill out your paperwork before 10 a.m. in order to get a hearing for the protective order. So Sunday I go to the police station trying to get a protective order because I called the non-emergency number and they told me, oh yeah, you can do that. So I went down there to do it Sunday, can't do it, gotta go to the courthouse. Go to the courthouse Monday and was too late to make it for the docket. So I had to call back the very next morning, fill out the paperwork, and then I got the hearing. So it was a couple days, and I was slept on the couch, and he was in the room, and then he ended up getting sick, went to the hospital, and I got the protective order, and from the hospital he was put on a 72-hour mental hold, and when he came out of that, he was served with the protective order from
He
the
said
first
one of us called him, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
no.
He said one of us called the hospital and said that we were his brother and got him locked up in the mental ward for 72 hours. And believe me, you spend 10 minutes with this guy and you're gonna wanna lock him up in a mental institution too.
Well, like I said, I could tell just by his
Yeah, I
Facebook
mean,
post that,
so I mean, he got his own self locked up in there, and then but instead of just letting it go, you know, he's posted it on Facebook, you know, how we broke up his things, and then you'll see him on eBay for sale. I mean, this
yeah,
is what's been going on.
it's a sociopathic tendency.
It's
and
very crazy.
It's also a control issue.
And he's still trying to tell me what to do.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, even the day that he came over on 31st to pick up some of his stuff, he got right in my face and he goes, "You've got 2 days to get me the rest of the things that I want, or I'm calling your work. I'm gonna get you fired."
and that's where that one post comes
Yeah.
in, yeah.
He was gonna call him humiliator. at a
Well,
job.
you don't have to talk to him or accept his phone calls. You can just tell him, you can refer him to your lawyer, tell him, and ask your lawyer to write him a letter stating that he is not to call you, come over to your residency, your work, nothing, that everything goes through the lawyer's office.
Well, right now I've got the protective order covering me on that, and he has not
Good.
called,
Oh,
and
good,
the only communication is that on his wall.
right.
You know, just what he.
'Cause he knows
Yeah,
she's
because
looking at it.
he's mad, he
He knows
wants you
now.
to know, so that's why he's
Right.
posting things on his wall, because he knows he couldn't do it the other way, and that's one of those control things too.
He skirts
is
the
he's-
laws. He's always skirted the laws, Audrey. I've known this guy for probably 32 years, I think it's been now. And everything he's ever done is always, it's gotta be the best, and he's always gotta skirt the law. I mean, he's always trying to just get over on a technicality, you know what I mean? Just something, and that's the way he's always done it. So when you're dealing with somebody like that, you got a problem, especially when you've got a police force that is as uneducated as this one is when it comes to marijuana.
Right,
You know
well,
what
and
I mean? It's not
obviously
that dangerous to come in
uneducated when
and
it
beat you
comes
up.
to protecting people that are being threatened, especially women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for sharing your story, and I hope this helps other people that are going through this, and just to be prepared too, if they haven't gone through this, because they need to know that this could happen to them.
Yeah.
And
And don't keep silent about it. Make sure
Don't
you
hide.
make it known, especially if you have something that going on with law enforcement that was undeserved and unjust.
Absolutely.
and get records of everything.
Yep, keep
Yeah.
records, and these guys have kept excellent records, and I'm glad you got a hold of me.
Well,
right
Audrey, if
away.
anybody out there needs your help, you know, you're the one to go to. You're the only one that helped me.
You're the
You know,
voice.
C4 CPR is the only ones that called me back and have been on my side the whole time, along with you and what is it? I am Bill
I am
Smith.
Bill Smith.
Oh yeah, Sean,
Sean,
Jared,
Charles,
Mark,
Jared,
Bob. Yes, we all
Michael.
network together.
Everybody's been helping us out, and we just really appreciate it. We
Yeah.
didn't know where to go to. I mean, we've tried everything. And, you know, I get upset watching the news anymore because this morning I see on the news there's a dog doing a trick. It was cute, but we were violated like no tomorrow, and
Yeah.
and our rights were violated, and nobody would come
Well,
out to
and
talk to
we're gonna
us.
all do what we can to make sure that this gets out.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
trying.
And
Definitely you are.
Well,
Mike is.
nobody else needs to go through this.
No,
No.
I'm just worried that, like I was telling the lady I was talking to tonight, I had an interview with a college student, I believe she was. What happens if I get mad at her? You know, say I don't like you. I can have your house busted within a month if you don't comply with them coming in, because nobody's going to let them in and search. I mean, they tear your house up when they search.
yeah,
They weren't going to just get out on Christmas night and go 1, 2, 3, 4. They weren't going to do that. They
They're
weren't
go
gonna.
through
They
things.
when we let them in here, it was a free for all after that, and I knew it would have been, and so did she.
oh yeah,
And that's why another reason why they weren't allowed in. It would have been a free for all, and there's nothing to hide, but our personal things are still our personal
Yeah.
things. That's why they call it personal.
yeah. Well, you weren't breaking the law, so there was no reason for them to come in, and especially without a search warrant.
There's
That's
no
what I
reason
thought.
for that type
You
of
don't have anything to
violation.
hide, but you've got a lot to protect.
Yes.
And they've proven that they need to be, kept from your stuff because they do break things.
Well, who do I got on my team now that I can't trust the police officers to keep us safe? The ones that are supposed to serve and protect, not beat up and scare.
Yeah,
You know, what are we supposed to do for our protection now? I mean,
Apparently rely on yourself and people like these,
Yeah.
to help out and groups to stay together. Safety in numbers.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
safety
about
and
it.
numbers.
Safety in numbers.
don't be silent.
No, silence is
Don't
not gonna
lie.
get it out there. It's, you gotta speak up. Definitely speak up.
We definitely took, what we wanted to do was take all that energy and all that, frustration and anger and all the emotion that we were feeling after, having them come through our house like that and going through it. We just kind of want to do something with that energy, and I think this is probably the
Instead of
best
going to
place.
jail with it. You know?
Or hating,
Yeah.
or,
Hating,
or
yeah.
continuing to perpetuate, this, stupidity.
Yeah.
It's just better to go ahead and say, okay, this happened to me, learn from it, and don't let it happen to you.
I just don't want
and
anyone
then
else hurt.
teach the cops that you shouldn't have done this. You
This
need
is
to
how it
now
should have
pay.
been
You
done,
now need
yeah.
to pay
Yes.
for what you broke.
Because I mean,
It's time they
If
were
it-
made an
if
example
it
of.
would have
Yeah.
been, if it would have been a different drug that could kill someone, and we were literally putting it out on the
Well,
streets,
sure.
I can understand them coming in there and kicking our butts
Yeah,
because we would have deserved it.
yeah.
But for a marijuana plant,
That we
even,
have a
even
license
if we
for.
were overgrowing, even if we were breaking the law like that, that was unnecessary. That plant is not going to hurt anybody, and that plant would also been there December 26th instead of coming in here Christmas night like they had to, late at night, like it was a big emergency that we may have had an extra plant. God
Yeah.
forbid.
Yes.
It even sounds
Merry
silly when you
Christmas,
say
Happy
it, right?
New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know the cops never even said Merry Christmas.
No.
Well, of course not, because, you know.
I was a little put off by that. I was like, come on, you're gonna wake me up out of bed, you're gonna wanna search my house. Least you could have done was say, Merry Christmas. Not even.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
No,
you.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate
Appreciate it.
everything you're doing for us. Audrey, I appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, we wouldn't have, I don't know what I would have done if I wouldn't have actually, like she said, channeled the anger this way. Because it was going to go another way and it was going to get ugly.
Well, I'm glad you did call, because if people don't let everyone in the community know what's going on.
It's just like anything
No
else. Hey,
change.
that happened to me. You know,
Mhm.
hey, that happened to me.
Change
And if we
doesn't
all get
happen.
together and we all join together as a team, we can beat this. I mean, unfortunately, they decided this was a war on drugs. You know, it's an idiot slogan to have.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, why would you want to declare war on your own people?
right,
That's what it is.
It's basically what it was. It's basically what they're doing.
yeah. I know. Well, we'll do what we can, you know?
Therefore, anything I can do, I'll help too. Because they're not going to get away with this. Not tomorrow, not next year. I'm going
The
to be
community
there.
needs to know how the money is being spent.
Well,
And
I'm not going
what's
away.
happening.
Audrey, I'm not going away. You're not going away. Mike's
Nope.
not going away. And there's more people every day like me, you, Linda, Michael, that are not going to play this game anymore.
No,
You don't have to hide if you're not breaking the law.
that's right.
Come out and let's get it all together, you know, and let's get this legal so we don't have to have anybody else hurt. And we can spend our resources on something that really needs to be done. You always see all these people trying to pick up these children from schools and stuff now, kidnapping them. Let's figure out how to make that stop instead of putting the board up, you know?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Where'd
it.
that ashtray go?
Yeah, exactly. Smoke time. Gotta have a smoke.